Hi everybody, Stephanie Calhoun here in the next question in a series of video blog questions around yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, and life. So today's question comes to you from a friend of mine, Tammy Jo, who has expressed some concern around her confidence in being able to teach yoga to different bodies, meaning she understands and knows that everybody is different, you know, in a esoteric kind of way, that we're all really different, but also from a physiological and anatomical basis that we are all structured very differently. So how do you teach to these differences in your class and gain some confidence in anatomy? So thanks for the question, Tammy Jo. It's a great one. And believe me, I can't tell you how many times I get questions around anatomy from students or from student teachers asking, why is it that my teacher has said this in the past? Or why is it when I was away on a trip and taking a workshop, they used this cue, and why were they saying that? What were they trying to tell me? And unfortunately, the case is, most times, and I've had this experience as well, most times when you're taking you know, a one-off class, or when you're hearing instruction from people, there's not always, I'm not going to say never, because there's not always clear instruction giving you the indication of where you should be feeling it in your body. What is the function or purpose of the posture? What is this trying to do? What's it trying to strengthen? What's it trying to stretch? What kind of energy movement or shifting of the vayus are you trying to do? What is the purpose of it? So that I can have a tangible experience in my own body based on my own perception of sensation I'm experiencing. So this is why I keep coining this phrase that I'm hoping one day will become mainstream: sensation-based alignment. You have to understand where you're supposed to feel something, what it's supposed to feel like, which I'm getting to in a moment, in order for you to have your own experience internally. Yoga is an internal practice. It's not about what it looks like. And I'd like to quote Leslie Kaminoff here, who has said, and I love this, yoga postures or asanas don't have alignment. Bodies have alignment. This is critical. If you can actually understand that asanas don't have an alignment, but bodies do, in particular, individual bodies have their own particular alignment, then you're 90% of the way there in terms of understanding how to safely, effectively, and properly teach and cue yoga postures. The key also is, not only do you need to understand that each individual has their own alignment, you have to understand what the heck each posture is trying to do in the first place. So this is essentially the basics of what I do in my yoga teacher training programs and what I do in my classes when I'm teaching. Get the students to understand where it is that they're supposed to be feeling certain sensations, which is one of two, in the body, and having an experience of that kind of moment of, aha, right, now when I've made this adjustment to myself in my own body, I now feel it. So that's very empowering for your students to have that capacity to figure it out on their own with your safe guidance and with your understanding of what you would like them to offer their own bodies, and seeing if it works. Was it efficient? Was it inefficient? Did it do anything? Did it transform it? Do you feel less? Do you feel more, or too much? All of these are possible, and many more experiences. However, it gets down to understanding two basic concepts. Really one concept with two basic possibilities. So we look at sensation-based alignment. What's the root of that? Well, what kind of sensation is the root of it? So the sensation you need to be able to understand as a teacher in order to cue your students, and also as the student, as the practitioner, whether you're in a class or at home, in your own practice or video, whatever you're doing, you need to understand these two possible sensations: tension and compression. That's really the basis of what you need to understand, and have an understanding of what's the intention of this form or yoga posture. So my frustration is coming from this magazine. Today I picked this up. This is an international yoga publication. It's out all over the world, so they want you to read it. So I'm not exposing some hidden lie or some hidden untruth. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make a point that even in international publications with highly respected teachers, they're not giving you this information. They're not giving you where should you be feeling it and what else could you be possibly feeling. Because the what else could you be feeling could be causing injury, harm, frustration, maybe permanent damage if we go to the extreme. So let's go back to these sensations of tension and compression. As yogis, as people living in the world from early childhood development on, we get pretty used to understanding the feeling of stretch. Okay? If I bring my ear to shoulder, if I reach my arm to the side and pull it back behind me, I might experience a feeling of tension, we're calling it, or stretch across the chest, down the front of my arm, for example. That's pretty easy to feel. We can feel when we're having a sensation of tension in the body. I can't tell you how many times I've heard students say in class when I ask them, what are you feeling there? And they'll say, oh, I feel really tight here. Well, fine, if what you should be feeling is tension. If you're supposed to be feeling a stretch and you feel tight, that's an accurate definition to me of what you're feeling. But if what you are actually experiencing is compression, and you're saying, I'm really tight here, that tells me you don't have an understanding of the different sensations of tension and compression in your body. So, what is compression? I mentioned tension is the feeling of stretch. Compression is exactly what it sounds like when we compress something, when we push two areas closer together. So this could be two bones, this could be bones against your muscles, it could be compression of your head against the floor in a headstand. So two surfaces being drawn closer together. Now, I'm using two fists. Imagine these are two bones in your spine. Now, there's obviously, if this is a bone, there's obviously not muscles and blood vessels, etc. here. So you're not just bringing two bones together in a compressive force, but you're bringing the bones and tissues between them into compressive force. What this feels like in the body is pressure. And what you need to understand is two areas, or what I call segments, two segments are being drawn closer together. If you push two surfaces like these together, is it possible to eventually go further? What I mean is, if I keep pushing my right hand further into my left hand, but my left hand doesn't move because these surfaces are compressed, will my right hand eventually go further? No. Why won't my hand go further? I'm compressed. If this hand does not move, it has no capacity to go any further. Is this hand going to go through it? Well, if you dig a hole in the center and cut my hand down through the center, maybe my hand will go through. But bringing two surfaces together means the end of your range of motion. I repeat, two surfaces coming together that we define as compression means the end of your range of motion. So this can also be happening when you're feeling tension on the opposite side. So here is my example. In this magazine, and why it's important to look at everything through very big glasses with wide open lenses and challenge what you're reading, challenge what you're hearing, challenge me. I don't know everything, that's for darn sure. So one of the explanations they give in this particular position, up here in this, what you would see in my opinion would be called a variation of the form. This is Urdhva Hastasana, or upward salute, or what we might call full mountain pose. So don't let your elbows bend or your arms go wide, which will result in a loss of length in the sides of your waist. So there's multiple things I could point out about this statement, but first of all, do not let your elbows bend or let your arms go wide. If I'm bringing my arms up overhead, and their image that they're giving is, in the previous instruction, to make your arms go in line with your ears. And I try to bring my arms in line with my ears, I'm going to experience one of how many sensations? Two. Tension and compression. So where might I be feeling a stretch? Do this for yourself. Bring your arm up overhead and notice if you are tight. If you're explaining the sensation you're experiencing, close your eyes, let your attention focus on your body. Where are you feeling it? Where do you feel like you're tight? So let your eyes open. If you're actually tight, muscularly tight, and you're feeling a stretch, when I bring my arm overhead, that stretch sensation will be felt in my triceps and or what we call your latissimus dorsi. Now they do reference this accurately. that you could be feeling a stretch in your latissimus dorsi and your tricep. Now, here's where they fall short. And here's why people get very frustrated with your yoga practice, and why teachers get frustrated with trying to explain things that even they don't fully understand. So, if I turn the page, if you're having trouble getting your arms alongside your ears, which I'll just mention is not achievable by everyone, here's their suggestion. Limitation of this motion could mean that you are tight in the latissimus dorsi muscles and tricep muscles. Perfect. Then guess what? There's no other explanation for why else might I not be able to achieve this. So what if I ask my student who is trying to get their arms alongside their ears, if I ask them, where are you feeling that? If I've asked you, where are you feeling that? And you do this, I'm really tight back here. What I need for you to understand, and what you need to understand, this is where the possible stretch is taking place. This is me bringing two areas further away from each other, which defines a stretch, or what I call tension. I am lifting my humerus bone, the upper arm bone, and I'm pressing it into a prominence, which is part of my shoulder blade. It's called the acromion process. When I bring my arm up and I push into the acromion process, I consider it picking up a hitchhiker. You run into the acromion, another bony prominence, and then you pick it up and take it along for the ride. So you've reached compression already, then you take it up further overhead, trying your darndest to bring it up in line with your ears as the instruction says to do. Now, am I feeling tight here? Meaning, wow, that's a really great stretch? No, I'm feeling compression, which I defined earlier as you're at the end of your range of motion. I am at the end of my range of motion, of flexion of my humerus, we call it, right here. I already, you can see, this starts to lift. My collarbone, my clavicle, starts to lift up, which also forms an attachment with that same bony shelf of the acromion. So if I lift my arm any further, this all starts to lift. See how the angle increases of my finger? That's called compression. Now you're picking up another bony segment like a hitchhiker, taking it along for the ride. If I keep trying this, and I listen to or read and interpret what's in a magazine or multiple publications, or being told by my teacher, or presume in myself without anyone telling me, oh, I'm really tight here. If I just keep working at it, eventually, which it says in this article, over time, you'll be able to work through that stretch and get your arms in line with your ears. Well, you know what? If what you're feeling is stretch, tension, yes, you might get there eventually. But if you're feeling compression, you think you're going to work through that eventually? No. And what's really important here is as I keep doing this and demonstrating the position of my collarbone, my clavicle, coming up, 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 and up, do you notice it's getting pinched off in here? There's blood supply, nerve supply, other muscles and tissues in here at the neck, that now I'm not only compressed at my acromion, I'm now compressing into my cervical vertebrae. I'm now compromising efficient blood flow. But you know what's sad? If you were just allowed to let your elbows bend or your arms go wide, even if they don't align with your ears. Do you see how I take the compression away from my neck? I have a neck injury. Do you think I should be trying to force my arm to go this way? Not in a million years. Taking that wider arm stance, bending the elbow, letting the shoulder blade depress, letting it settle so I'm not having as much compression here at my neck is a much more user-friendly approach. This is the problem. When we teach something based on an aesthetic that everybody has to achieve looking a certain way, we have completely forgotten that people are unique. People are different. Everyone's bone structure, everyone meets a compression point at a different range than the person next to them on a mat. So yoga teachers, please, please, please start to gain an understanding of two distinct sensations, tension versus compression. What are you feeling? What is the intention of the posture? And is this position good for me or potentially bad for me? Could this long term lead to a problem? Having that understanding of tension and compression could save and evolve your practice drastically. It could also save and evolve your students' practice. So, many other things I could mention about this, including the reference to don't let your elbows bend or your arms go wide, which will result in the loss of length in the sides of your waist. First of all, your arms don't attach to your waist. Where you get this sense of length in your waist is a sensation experience. If you actually were to lengthen your waist, i.e. make it longer, okay, that would mean you would grow taller. Is it possible for us to grow taller from practicing yoga? No, because after all these years, I'd be 7, 8, 9, 10 feet tall of all this yoga practice, making me longer. What I will point out about that statement, which is misleading, is when the arms are lifting and you're pushing the clavicle up, the collarbone up, you're also lifting on what we call your first rib. And when we're lifting on our first rib, you're lifting on the whole rib cage. So it's going to pull the whole rib cage up. When it pulls the rib cage up, you may get a sensation of a little bit of tension or stretch on the sides of your waist. This is a stretch. It's not an actual lengthening, meaning you've grown longer and you can sustain that. So if my arms go wider, my clavicles depress, meaning I'm not pulling up the top rib, not pulling up the whole rib cage. Does that mean I lose the length in my waist that I've apparently just gained? Yeah, you lose the length, but know that it's not actually length to begin with. It's a bit of stretch where you're compromising the neck to get a feeling of stretch at the waist. There are many more useful ways and user-friendly ways to get a stretch at the waist. Bringing the arms overhead is not the classic approach to that. So, call this Yoga Mythbusters, call it an anatomy lesson. I don't know. It's gonna create controversy, I know. And that's fine. I want there to be controversy. I want you to think for yourself. I want you to approach your practice for yourself. And I want you to feel and understand in your body tension versus compression. I want for you to understand the concept of sensation-based alignment. Help me make this a regular run-of-the-mill yoga term that everybody starts saying. Sensation-based alignment. And again, to re-quote Leslie Kaminoff, asanas don't have alignment, bodies have alignment. Practice safely, practice with integrity, practice with a very wide open lens, and see if you can perceive sensation of tension and compression in everything that you're doing. Be more mindful. Namaste.